settling in. So, two major themes we've been exploring since we started the book club. One is letting go, taking off, putting down any unnecessary genes we might be wearing. So, consider as you rest into your chair, as you feel your bodies, see what genes you might be wearing, what fixed intentions are no longer necessary. And really, just through putting up this intention and feeling into the body, you might notice how things soften and relax. All sorts of not just genes, but like micro patches on the skin or inside the bones soften, loosen, allowing more and more of the body and mind to come into coherence. With fewer of those assumptions online, it's just easier for everything that we are to connect. Fewer things to disagree on. You can continue relaxing into the body and breathing into it with the subtle question of when we find even more internal coherence. What else can we let go of? And even what is the least particular thing? What is the least particular aspect of experience that all of our subminds can agree on in the moment? Moment after moment. Might be a sense of spaciousness, might be a sense of coherence, might be the very fast vibrations felt all over the body. For they have any meaning, before any valence to the sensations, before deciding if they're good and bad, just sensations all over. And with this extra space in our bodies and minds, you can consider what intention, what filter, what organizing element you do want to bring to our session. For example, my intention is to create a field of communal space for learning. Patience with each other and with ourselves. A charitable attitude. Willingness to learn and to update our models. You can find one such intention. Maybe it's desire to learn. Maybe it's an attitude of friendliness towards other participants. Maybe it's a desire to be easy with yourself. Maybe just a simple openness. Choose the quality and see how you can bring that quality into an agreement, body wide, awareness wide. Maybe it's just a concept and thinking about it, contemplating what it means to be open. Maybe there's a felt sense of the openness or the friendliness, and then you invite it to be felt everywhere in the body. Maybe regardless of the world of the word, it's just a subtle smile, pleasant sensation accompanying it. And the willingness, simple willingness to feel that subtle smile and hold that as the attitude coming into a session. Before we bring the meditation to a close, see if you can notice that there's this friendly, smiley field that exists not just in what you normally recognize as you. Maybe you can see if there's a hint of what feels like the collective field, all of us participating in the smile, all of us participating in the openness, every one of us here to learn something new, including me. And you can take a last deep breath in, taking all the goodness in, and come join us here with eyes open. Lovely to see you all here this morning. Hey, Jonathan, good to see you. Sophie, welcome. So, the topic of today is levels of mind. And in some sense, what we've just done is the example or the essence of what takes us to a new level of mind. There's a series of levels of mind or bases of operation, I like calling them. That's a term created, invented by one of my teachers, Dan Brown. And it's the answer to the question, where are we coming from right now? What is the primary filter of filters that are mounted before our sensory perception, before any meaning is generated, in a way that's often hidden from us? Sometimes you could call them priors or hyper priors, the assumptions that are baked into our reality model. And as we go down this path and through the continuous jumping from level of mind to level of mind, we learn to identify those priors and change them from being subjects, and unconscious subjects is that, the thing that perceives, into objects. So I can see my assumptions and then choose them moment to moment. What are the assumptions? What are the genes that I want to wear going into every situation, every moment, every conversation, any work that I do? And the simplest way that I know how to describe this level of mind, and this is solely my theory, not something that I've found anywhere else, but I think it's a beautiful way of tying all of this together, this entire path, and through this understanding of a basis of operation, is that each is primarily composed or primarily can be described by using three factors. One of them is how unattached we are, like the inverse of how much attachment there is in the system in a given moment. Attachments are genes. Attachments are those hyper priors, or they're those unconscious and often very entrenched assumptions. The second is the degree of wisdom that exists in the mind. And wisdom here being the way that the mind has developed in learning how to relate to itself. What are the assumptions that it uses to connect to other parts of itself? Are they more loving? Are they more non-zero sum? Are they aware of the basic insight of emptiness or the lack of inherent meaning, such that they can see any offering coming into the space as an attempt at a gift versus seeing it as something to fight against? So that is wisdom, and that is what we cultivate throughout the whole path. That is, in some sense, the core evolutionary process or vector of the mind, learning how to do itself better. So you have minus attachment, wisdom, and then the third thing is collectedness. How much is the mind under consensus right now? And that's sort of what we did right now in the beginning when we were talking about choosing one intention, generally a wholesome one, something that's easy to agree on, and then bringing it to more of our bodies, reflecting and contemplating it, seeing how we can organize around that as a principle coming into duration. And when all of these are combined, it allows for greater conscious energy and it creates a more expanded awareness. And right now, in each of our practices in the moment, probably we haven't done much to really jump to a higher basis of operation. There needs to be a directed energy into one of those hyper priors, into one of those attachments, which is something that can only be done after some cultivation, after creating some consensus, after doing some wisdom or insight type practice. But I wanted to at least give you the essence of what that looks like. And later down the page, and thanks to the book club, I actually made a list of some of the major attachments that are broken with each jump. I did not have that before. And we can talk about that a little bit. But first, I want to get a sense if this is clear, if you guys have any questions. I know this is quite abstract as long as you don't directly do it in your experience. Yeah.
Could you repeat what you said about the wisdom part? What it is exactly?
Yeah. So often in Buddhist traditions, particularly if you look at the Mahayana, it's also down the page in that chapter in the book, they talk about what's called prajna or prajna paramita, the wisdom that helps you cross to the other side, that helps you cross to realization or awakening. And that's the wisdom, generally, what they speak of emptiness or lack of inherent meaning, of shunyata or asvabhava, lack of own nature, lack of inherent existence. It speaks to the lack of inherent meaning, the lack of inherent existence, or conversely, the flip side of this is the interconnectedness of all things. And so the more that the mind sees that nothing is of inherent existence, the less it wants to reify something into inherent existence in a way that creates attachment. And the less other parts of the mind then come up and see, oh, this is this thing, and now it's attached in a process of trying to invalidate it or push it away. And then something else comes. I wish I had another hand or two. It's like, oh, this entire conflict it's entrenched here. This is bad. You have to solve it. You have to push it. You have to, right? But then this insight, this wisdom of emptiness, the next time this piece comes up, this one is like, oh, this is not so great. There's potentially enough wisdom to be like, oh, but this is not self-existing. I don't have to fight against it. Actually, the best move is to see what type of service this structure of mind that's being formed in front of the eyes of awareness, wise awareness, is seeking from the greater awareness, and then supplying it with that service, and then allowing everything to dissolve. So wisdom is the quintessential move of seeing things as they arise from their component bits, right? What I often call sensory bits or mind atoms, and then relating to them with an attitude of support or service or love, friendliness. This is where all the Brahma Viharas come in. So even as we say that the core wisdom is emptiness, it necessarily goes along with these understandings of loving service, compassion, of the interdependence of all things, of how the only way forward, so to speak, in terms of conscious evolution, is crafting non-zero sum games or creating mental structures that, through becoming more and more aligned to themselves and to the ground of being, to fundamental consciousness, create structures or create games that take more and more of the participants into consideration and create positive outcomes, which is impossible to do if I have a sense of this is me and this is what I have to believe in and this is the agenda that I have to be the certain way, right? It's very rigid, it's very limited, it's very narrow in terms of your perspective. So that is the essence of wisdom.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Dor. I have a question. It might be a bit more theoretical, but I'm just curious how, if we would be in like fundamental consciousness as our basis of operation, and you were saying that then we choose our priors as to how we're going to like act in the world. Would I think basically then you're saying that you would be operating two different bases of operation, kind of fundamental consciousness and whatever one coordinator you need for that action in that moment, and you would have chosen how to act. But then you're coming from both at the same time.
That's right. In some
Okay.
sense, we're talking about, and I've not explored this in the book
Mhm.
yet. We're talking about, when we talk about a basis of operation, we generally mean on the vector of emptiness. Sometimes we call this the ultimate or the absolute, meaning what is the most expanded we can be? What is the come from in terms of not having entrenched unconscious priors? And then the thing that we mount on top of that with choice, what assumptions we want to bring in, you can also call that a basis, but that's not the type of ultimate basis that we come from. It's like we climb those levels of mind and then use that as a basis from which more assumptions come in that are more mundane, so to speak.
Mhm.
When we go over the list, it will be more clear, right? In some sense, the ultimate attachment to go beyond is the self. This, first, the story of the self, and then even this notion of an individual self that's separate from the environment, from other beings, right? And then on the foundation of that, you can have, oh, now I want to be friendly. Now I want to be, now I want to wear a business suit and go into a meeting, right? And you can wear the suit and even wear a self, right? Even though the foundation is a clear knowing or seeing through that self as empty.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not, so it's definitely reasonable to say, oh, my basis of operation is non-self, and it's also coming into this meeting with wanting to do business and to develop whatever infrastructure for this or that, whatever the business is that I'm working on. But normally when we say basis, it only speaks to this ultimate.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks.
I
Yeah.
still didn't get it. I'm
Oh.
sorry.
Okay, when we go over the list, we'll give it another go. And tell me, tell me in like 20 minutes if it's still not clear. Alex, you wanted to ask something?
Yeah, so like I had a question kind of in continuation of Sophie's question and your reply to that. So you said that the ultimate attachment that we'll let go of is self. But then previously today you also said that mentioned how the mental objects that arise, they can become the subject of consciousness, right? And so that is the same as this as self. And so I'm wondering if there is a distinction between self as anything and self like as a particular thing that becomes a self. Do you see what I mean? Kind of, is there like a way to think about it? Because conceptually it causes for me some confusion when it's just like a self, is it like this abstract self that can be anything, and then there's, I guess, like the subject is synonymous with it, but then mental objects can become that self. And so what I have trouble with very often is that like when something becomes the subject of consciousness, it's like I don't really know what to do with it sometimes. So I don't know. Is there, does it make sense what I'm asking? Or
I think so.
yeah.
Let me try. So there are many things that people refer to when they say self, at least separate self. And I try to note a couple of them in the list. And so ultimately, anything that we call a self is a type of story, right? There's no self that is self-existent. There are many types of things that we call self. And as you say, anything that becomes entrenched as a self, as a subject, and becomes a fixed reference point, in some sense, is a self or a subject. And anytime we're not conscious of that, it's not a choice that we've made, then we are limiting ourselves in a sense. And it's a cause of suffering, or can be a cause of suffering. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So in a simpler way of stating all of this without even using the word self, we're just continually uncovering all of our unconscious assumptions and making them conscious.
Yeah. So it is the question of kind of, I'm just wondering, okay, so what if I identify with the self and I cannot see through it, even though I know it's not real, what is it that makes it stick? Kind of like,
Welcome to the samsaric experience.
yeah, so but
That is our path,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
We collect the mind. We start doing wisdom type practices. We go into higher and higher bases of operation, and then we trust the process. Through the higher
Yeah.
basis, through the higher vantage point, we start seeing the hints of what it is that's unconscious, and we allow it to slowly dissolve and come into the forefront as we live our lives. It's not much to do besides walking down this path, doing the practices, understanding how it works, and just trusting.
So it is about recognition of something that is not being recognized at the moment. So like I don't see something which makes it appear as real, and I cannot snap out of it, even though I understand intellectually that is not what it looks like.
In some sense, once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Once you see it and you've made it an object, it can't fool you anymore. And we'll do an exercise later to
As opposed to, you mean as opposed to the subject, like so you've seen it as object, you see it as not me, kind of.
It's not that you see it as not me, it's that you see it. And if you see it, it has a hard time pretending that it's the thing that's seeing.
Right. Yeah, I get it.
All right, so let's continue a little bit. Maybe this also brings some more clarity. So this is also where the name unmediated awareness comes into play. It's also a term that I'm using that I've not seen anywhere else. And the reason that I use that is because I want it to be very clear, unlike conceptions that use words like awake or recognizing awareness, I want it to be clear that unmediated awareness, the difference between that and ordinary awareness is what it's not perceiving from, what it's not bound by. And there's also a series of practices that help deal with each particular thing that might otherwise be blocking perception. So do you all have the document? Maybe if it's in front of your eyes, it's easier. Actually, I can also just share my screen. Let's see. Can you see?
Yes.
Okay. So here, by the way, this chapter level of mind is the summary of the three factors, right, that determine the height of a basis. Right? So inverse of attachment, depth of wisdom, degree of collectedness. And there are the four major bases that I described, which is unconscious awareness, conscious awareness, unmediated awareness, and fundamental consciousness. The jump from unconscious awareness, where we lose the knowing of the knowing, we lose ourselves, we forget, we become zombies, so to speak. The basis only happens when we have one coordinator that decides it's a king and doesn't share any information anymore. In some sense, it hijacks the entire mind and enslaves all other subminds. Instead of being participants that receive information and opt in, at least to some degree, into the collective space, they become just slaved or at the mercy of one submind. And that's what breaks down our ability to stay in conscious awareness, the ability to know that we know. So once we go beyond that, we come into the realm of conscious awareness. And generally what we do to achieve that is simple mind collectedness practice. The essence of collectedness or consensus practice is allowing all participants of mind to receive all of the information and participate in the conscious space, which is why it feels good. Nothing is being rejected. Nothing is being suppressed. Everything is online in coherence, humming along and having a good time. Any questions on that before I continue? No. Okay, let's continue. So unmediated awareness, in some sense, you could see each of these as a sub-basis of unmediated awareness. Where we go beyond. So the ones that I mentioned here are, first of all, orientation from a reified self. Before we have something more significant in terms of a sense of not being separated, we have just the story of a self. That's the thing that we're going to try poking at a little later. Then we also have thought and emotion. Consider how often There's a thought that comes into the space, and that thought colors the perception of the person that you're speaking with, of the space that you're in, of the work that you're doing, in a way that then changes how you perceive the next moment. Right? If you come to your workplace or the task that you have to do, and the thought that comes up is, "Oh, I can't believe I have to do this again." Your next thought, your next experience is going to be very different than if you were, "Oh, exciting! I get to play again. I get to do this work that I'm so great at." Right? And every thought that comes up shapes perception. And we go into a layer after layer of thought that then keeps us very narrowly defined in terms of how we perceive and how we act on a task, or how we are with a person, how we are with ourselves. Later, we go even deeper and fuck with our sense of time and space. And it's not that we lose any of these. Important here to say when we start getting into something that might sound more mystical. It's just that we stop being trapped in a very coarse definition of time and space. So space and time still definitely happen. We don't lose track of it. The clock doesn't stop. But there's a sense of freedom from defining everything through those perspectives. Then we have the duality of the observer, observed, and the space in which they arise. So we loosen some of the sense of a separate separate object or agent of perception. We start seeing how perception, the thing that perceives, and the entire space of awareness in which they arise are one continuous whole. And finally, what happens, and this is the most major jump of them all, is that there's a contracted sense of individual consciousness, the most major reference point in space. In some sense, this is the really visceral sense of having a center of awareness and an inside and an outside that just dissipates. And again, that doesn't take away identity, it doesn't take away goals, it doesn't take away agency, but it provides a type of freedom for everything that we are, for all parts, to play together much more equitably versus having just one very tight thing that continually iterates on itself and defining itself as the self, as the individual, as the thing that's separate from everything else. So with each step here, and there are pointing out meditations for each of these. Those of you who have done the Dustin DePerna Rigdon retreats that I keep recommending are familiar with those. Help take you beyond each of those priors with every meditation until you get to this point where you jump beyond the individual consciousness and arrive at the highest unmediated awareness, what they would also call awake awareness, or awareness that is aware, awareness that recognizes the ground of being, awareness that recognizes fundamental consciousness. And when we say fundamental consciousness, what we point to is just the consciousness that is there before the mind acts on it and makes things out of sensory bits, makes objects and phenomena and self and other and all of those definitions in a way that's compulsive, in a way that it cannot stop, and that loses itself in those mind-baked solutions, mind-baked objects. And that's the definition of samsara. The mind compulsively making assertions about what the right order is in this chaotic mix of sensations. And then not only doing that, but taking those objects and mounting them at the back of the mind and then perceiving from there. Before we go on, does that help clarify things? Linus, how's this all landing?
The processing. If I figure out the concrete question, I'll let you know. Thank you for stopping and asking.
So I want to say this is extremely intellectual. And without having had the experience, really the only purpose that this has right now is to give you a subtle, like a simple, maybe not a simple, but at least a beginning of an understanding of how this path looks like in terms of the stages that we can go through. And so don't worry if this sounds a little crazy or out there. Ultimately, you can only really understand this, or it only is useful once you start walking down this path. This is just an intellectual preparation.
I think maybe the question has to do with, you used the word choice, and then we talked about these different kinds of self, and maybe thinking about a self that chooses something, or puts on a jeans onto other participants of minds, or a self which has a different view. And I feel like it's this baked in duality which we're talking about. Whereas maybe I see that spiral behind you, like the thing that unbinds itself, and works on itself. But it seems like, I don't know if this is making any sense, but yeah, it feels like that's like the main issue with the understanding I have is, which is it one coordinator, one part of mind, which makes a choice? Is it all of them together? Is there a choice that gets made, or are we just trying to look at the unwinding, and who's doing the looking? So I keep coming back to this like paradoxical nature of it.
The place that we want to get to is that choices are made by the widest collection of online coordinators at every moment. In some sense, each basis has more of a consensus of the entire mind, all of the considerations, all of the attempts at meeting your needs, um, representing more and more of you. So choices, let's say it this way, in the first or most contracted basis of operation, where we have unconscious awareness, there's awareness where we're not conscious of awareness, right? We're not here in some sense. We don't know that we know. Maybe when we wake up, we were like, oh, of course I was here, but I did not know that I was, right? And then that moment of recognition, of remembering awareness. That happens because there is just one submind, one act of coordination that is choosing, that is deciding what to do. But it's from a very limited perspective, versus if everything in the space, all of the coordinators have at least a chance to contribute their information to the greater space. It's like, imagine one of us here on the call was a dictator, and every time someone tried to say something, it'd just be like, shh, no, no, I'm in control. Okay, onwards with the ride. No, there's two more hours. No, you don't get to pee. No, no, I choose the music. No, I see you. No, right? Versus if we allow everyone to speak, or in some sense, if we're so connected that words are often not even necessary. It's enough to just, and if you all look at one another, we're so attuned to one another, to our faces, to our postures, to the color of the skin, to what happens in the very subtle layers of existence. Just through this ongoing subtle dance, we have a sense of where everyone wants to go, of what needs to happen. That's the analogy, and it corresponds to how deeply in contact we are with ourselves in every moment. The more mediation we have, the more it's like not even just like one dictator, but layers and layers of some managerial hierarchy that abstracts the actual citizens in a country or the workers in a company, where the information does not even reach the top, right? The ivory tower or the office of the prime minister. just makes choices for itself without sharing information, without considering the needs of everyone else in the system that he supposedly was created to represent. How does that land?
I think experientially, I'm like, I get the vibe.
Yeah.
Um, I think like my verbal thinking mind is just very attuned still to a dualistic worldview. And when I hear you speaking like this, it seems to be coming from a very like unified view, because even this like we like when we talk to have the central information, like we say, yeah, central information, or the like bits of central information, right? But even those come from somewhere where
Hmm?
maybe something else has made a choice, so to say.
Yeah.
Um,
I also
so
wouldn't
then,
focus so much on the word choice.
hmm,
It's like if you roll a boulder down a mountain, is it making a choice with each time it hits something and it changes direction? It's making a
hmm,
choice with every spin that it makes. Right? It's a choice. Choices are also a perspective. So you don't have to get too hung up on that. Choices. The notion of choice is also empty. It's a useful description, but it doesn't have any inherent existence. So don't worry about it so much.
thank you.
Yeah, Alex.
I just have a small question. I was wondering if there's any correspondence between the levels of the mind, as you just explained, and the conceptual framework of the mind illuminated.
No.
So it's not even in the mind illuminated, nothing that is corresponding to these things.
I would only say that the thing that Shuladasa called awakening is the equivalent. Share this again. Is the equivalent of having awareness unmediated by a contracted sense of an individual consciousness or a sense of center to awareness.
What about metacognitive introspective awareness? Is that somehow here as well?
That's a feature of the mind that comes online from the conscious awareness basis.
Mm-hmm.
Right? In
Okay,
some sense, conscious awareness you could also say is sati, and metacognitive introspective awareness is sati sampajana,
right.
mindfulness with clear comprehension. So it's more of a faculty of mind, like the capacity not just to be aware, but to have an insight into what's in awareness, to have an understanding of what your intention is.
Yeah,
So if right now you're like, okay, I'm aware of awareness, I'm aware of the experience right now, but then you can also be like, oh, so what is my intention, or where is my attention going right now? That is mindfulness with clear comprehension, mindfulness or introspective awareness. And it's an
yeah,
important tool for this path, but it's not a basis of its own. It's more of a tool.
yeah, yeah. I think I understand. Yeah.
Okay, so the jump from unmediated awareness to fundamental consciousness, to the basis of fundamental consciousness, is if when we're here, unmediated awareness unmediated by a contracted sense of self, often at the beginning we still have to make some effort to make sure that we don't collapse into a center again. It takes some time to train the system, to increase the wisdom, to collect all of the various subminds into this agreement, right? This is the aspect of wisdom here, until it starts happening automatically. And the automaticity in some sense is what I call the shift to fundamental consciousness. Because now there's no longer some entity, some submind, some coordinator whose job is to make sure that everyone is aligned on not having a contracted self be the mediator. Rather, it happens naturally, moment by moment. There's nothing that needs to hold a basis anymore. From fundamental consciousness, automatically arises a type of awareness that's aligned with fundamental consciousness, which is what makes it a significant jump from unmediated awareness. In some sense, awareness here is not even mediated by the desire to have a particular level of mind. It's not mediated by an agenda, by a self, by a coordinator, by anything that's like, oh, now I am in this basis and I have to go towards that basis. It just naturally arises from the ground. In some sense, you could say you're done. And there is a doneness because there's no more effort in terms of going down the path. And then what happens here is through this, in some sense, final letting go of all activity, losing all preferences, anything that was the most deeply entrenched in terms of agendas and identities and strategies has a chance to come up and not be met by, oh, wait, this is not the time. I have to go to a higher basis. Oh, this is not the time. I'm doing Dharma right now. Right? So even the final minor invalidation of things that come up, of experience that manifests in the space, goes away and anything can arise very naturally. We get into a state that's called self-arising, self-liberating. Because just things just arise. There's no set strategy for how to meet them. There's no more, oh, I have to be loving. Oh, I have to be of service. Just arise. In the moment, there might be a sense of the space meeting them with service, or even an intention that arises in the moment, but those intentions as well self-arise and self-liberate. And then what happens is we go towards the unwinding and the solution of the mortar, the junk that's at the foundation of all of this stuff, which is karma. Meaning any type of intention, any type of act of coordination that is stuck in our system and has not been completed. Which is the definition of karma, action that requires more action to be complete. And so in the same sense that I just described, in this basis of fundamental consciousness, most things come up. They don't grab, they don't hold, they don't stay as reified forms, but just dissolve. This is what needs to happen to all of the repository of karma that we hold. And when that karma exhausts, talk about some other basis of operation that happens, but I'm going to put that down. It's a little too abstract at this point. I just want to point this out that we want to go to fundamental consciousness, to this, in some sense, non-basis, because nothing is holding a basis anymore. Nothing is conceiving of this is where I need to be. It still answers those conditions. It's still defined by these three factors, the necessary. But there's no one that conceives of that anymore and uses that as a way of going down the path. And all that remains is this continuous extinguishing of karma. Dan Brown used to say that it takes 7 years of being in that state completely, 100% of the time, for all karma to be exhausted. And then that's what leads us to the end of the path, as defined by Tibetan Buddhists, to the place where, as they say, all of the positive qualities of mind arise naturally. Without karma in the way, there's no more negativity, there's no more invalidation, there's no more desire to harm for the sake of harm. And then we live free and effortlessly with love and compassion, desire to leave a trace of goodness wherever we go. Yes, Moshe. Moshe?
Yeah. I'm just thinking about what Linus asked before, and to me as well, it's somewhat confusing and very confusing. is it possible to reach this unmediated awareness of fundamental consciousness in this body?
Yes.
Can you explain, because we talked about it before, that these filters that we have, we can be aware of it, yes, and again, we talked about, but can we remove them? Or we talked about we can be aware that this is not us, this is not the self, this is not that, but are we able to experience that the question?
Yes.
So maybe you can elaborate and explain more about how can we get to that particular point if the operating system in itself is limiting.
So we're gonna do short pointing out exercise, and then hopefully that helps elucidate this whole process. But I want to say what you're pointing to is very right. Right, this is the quintessential trying to upgrade the car as it's barreling down the highway. This is why meditation is useful, because you, in some sense, at least slow down the car a little bit as you try to replace its engine. Yeah, that is the challenge. We're trying to hack ourselves from the inside, trying to jailbreak our minds, and we don't even have a mind that we can hold and then use a screwdriver and reprogram. It's like we're inside of it. Yeah, Jen.
Is the general kind of like advice that for unwinding the karma, it only really makes sense to do it once you're in, what's it called? The unmediated? Was that what's called? The centralist phase. So before that, just don't worry about it kind of thing. Work to stabilize that 24/7 and then let things self-liberate.
Yeah, you don't worry about that before, except of course if some piece of trauma is interfering with your life. And of course there are many practices that help you mitigate or complete that karma with therapy and embodiment practices, body work, yoga, qigong, and a million other things. It's just that in some sense, all those practices is like you have a giant field of weeds. You just go and take them out one by one, but you have a billion. So from fundamental consciousness, it's like having a lawnmower and just like it's like pick them, with industrial strength.
See, it's like a lot faster to go that way. Is there a need to go to pluck some of those weeds so that one can get to fundamental consciousness, or unrelated, don't need it to go straight?
Yeah, I can say that in my path, I had some really deeply entrenched trauma that was in the way of being able to sustain the higher basis of operation. So I did a lot of work with therapists and body work just to tease out the place that was in such resistance, that was bound by so much pain that the system had a hard time taking in. So there's definitely room for that, especially for Westerners and the trauma that it's continuing to roll down the generations. Highly recommend to anyone going down this path to consider also having a coach or a therapist or whatever modality of healing and integration appeals to you.
That makes sense. Thanks.
Okay. Is it time for an experiment? Yes. Okay. Well, Alex, you wanted to say something before?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment a little bit and say that this framework, I just find it it's absolutely amazing in describing two psychedelic experiences that I had that were very profound and that I could see clearly, like a rising of phenomena. And it's just exactly like you described in this framework. And so one of those experiences was with eyes open, like watching movies, for example, and I could see that, like how this face of an actor just is, I don't know, it's empty. It just arises there, and I can see how my mind constructs and paints the reality in front of my eyes.
Yeah.
And the other experience was with eyes closed, and I like meditated for hours and hours. It was just kind of like the same, but inside of my own mind. And so my only problem right now is that I can't really do that in daily life very well, and without the aid of
Yeah.
psychedelics. So I'm that's just kind of where I am on the
Yeah.
path.
Mhm.
And yeah, but I really like this framework. It just has a great explanatory power, I think. Yeah.
Great. So psychedelics are a great way to have a glimpse of this, but it is important to say that psychedelics also take away choice in some sense. The more you take,
Mhm.
the less you're able to construct.
Yeah.
So, for example, my experience right now is not that I continually see your face as an empty, shimmering thing that I have to continually make an Alex of. It's like it's a choice that's been made. And if I take a few seconds, I can get to that state, but I don't need to, right? I could choose to, but it's not required.
Mhm.
I like seeing you as just the human Alex right now.
Yeah.
I want to make a continuous conscious effort to construct you in some sense, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay. Are you ready to give this a try? We're going to do a very simple meditation. And it involves the first element of unmediated awareness, which is the orientation or belief in a reified self. Before we do that, I want you to take a moment and settle into your body. Find coherence, whatever you can. You don't have to go super deep. And I want to say, you're going to have this recording. We're recording this right now. And you can also continue trying this at the end of whatever mind collectedness practice you do on a daily basis or on retreat. The deeper you go into collectedness before, the easier this becomes. Take a moment just to breathe into the body, collect on some quality, whatever is the simplest for you to do in 30 seconds. But now I want to invite you to put down all of the intellectual stuff. Don't try to figure anything out. I'll be there later. If you have any lingering questions, I'm happy to answer them later. There's also everything in the book, and we have the recording. So to the degree that's possible for you, just put it all down. For this next part, I want you to decide whether you want to do it with eyes open or closed. Just your intuition. There's no wrong option here. And I want you to ask yourself the very simple question of where is the self? Is it in your fingertips? Is it in a thought that comes up? Is it inside the head? And if so, is it a particular place in the brain? If it's in a particular place in the brain, is it a particular sub network? Is it a collection of neurons? Is it the electric impulses between the neurons? Where is the self? Every time an answer does come up, oh, it's in my head, it's in my heart, it's the entire space. I want you to look at that place, see if you can find the self. And normally what you find, spoiler, it's just a continuous, ever-changing, relentless, unceasing sensations manifesting again and again and again and again. And continue asking yourself the question. You can scan your entire body, you can scan your thoughts, scan any concept that you have. Oh, the self is the collection of all of my memories. Well, where is it? Where is that? Where is that self right now? And every time you make a move like this to find the self, and you see that it's unfindable, you can then take the entire space of awareness, again, whether eyes closed or open, as your basis of operation. Meaning every time you come directly facing the unfindability of what we call a self, you use that opportunity to affirm the entire space of awareness as your basis of operation. So there will be a subtle shift here from an idea of a self that's mediating awareness. By the way, you're all doing great. And to coming from a more expanded space of the entirety of the field of awareness. And it can be subtle, but if you really tune in, try not to make effort towards it, but more relax back into the whole space. And see, maybe there's a signature of some more expandedness, more openness, more freedom, less tightness, more coherence in the body, the entire space. And at some point, after exhausting the list of all possible ways or places for the self to be, there is a nice sense of conviction, the ability to just rest into the space of awareness. And you can taste this as the first shift in basis of operation. We've dissolved a bit of a sense of a reified self, and rather see how every bit of the space of awareness is perceiving itself directly, not mediated by an idea of self. If anyone has a place where they still have some conviction that they can find a self, bring it to the space and let's explore that together. If you're not speaking, then continue resting as the entire field of awareness. Anyone care to share how it's going, or where they're stuck, or if they've had immense success?
I start not dreaming, but perceiving simulated sensory input of possible futures. What I will say next, what I will do after this, and the common signature of all of those feels like self.
Anyone else? What's your experience like? How has perception changed, if at all?
For me, so I meditated with my eyes closed. When I opened my eyes, now that I've opened my eyes, it's just like there's much less agitation and sort of like self-consciousness in like the normal social self-consciousness sense. Um, so yeah, that's a qualitative change that I'm noticing.
Great. Anyone else? Anyone having difficulty? Muted.
Yeah, I had difficulties. I mean, the beginning, obviously, I wasn't able to find myself. Didn't expect that, but as you detach, you find more space. But to land in a space of awareness, kind of like almost as in the awareness itself, seems to me at that stage impossible. So I was not able to do that. It seems like there are kind of like sparks of different aspects that, so it's very hard for me to really kind of like even find or hold myself in that position of no awareness or full awareness. So
No awareness?
kind of like almost like looking for the emptiness.
Yeah.
That really the underlying aspect that everything spark.
Yeah, you don't have to look for emptiness.
No, I'm not necessarily looking for it. I mean, even landing somewhere, it seems like every time there is some kind of something that grasps underneath that.
Hmm.
You're getting more and more space,
Yeah.
but that's all that it's giving me. So again, maybe I'm challenged by that aspect of inability to disconnect from this kind of duality, I guess.
I think you're trying to do a little too much.
So tell me how to do less.
It's very, very simple. You scan for the self, right? It's as simple as having a thought, do I have milk? And you go to the fridge and you're like, oh, no milk. And then you're sure that you have no milk. And then what remains is just the entire space of awareness. That's it. You're not looking for emptiness. You're not looking for duality. You're not looking for enlightenment. You're not looking for fundamental consciousness. You're just, oh, here's the space of awareness that's already always here. And it's now a little more easy, a little more clear to rest as that. That's it. And you said that you had a little more space. That's it. That's how it starts. A little more space every day, a little more space. And you're very welcome to find time with me on the calendar and we can, mm, you know, go a little deeper, see what's in the way. But really try that. Try to keep it the simplest. Don't mind the thoughts that are like, oh, it has to be this way. Oh, I have to. Very, very simple. Absolute simplest.
Yeah, to be truthful, I mean, I'm trying to articulate that so it seems like rigid, but I'm pretty easy with not finding anything. So so it's okay. I'm coming with a lot of gentleness, and that's kind of like almost like meeting myself where I am.
Great.
Try to kind of like practice what you have discussed and try to apply that.
Mhm. Try also noticing from this perspective, resting as the space of awareness, and I'm talking to all of you. See if you can sense the subtle way that it's not just your personal spaciousness, it's not just your own practice, but there's an added clarity to an entire field of people who've just gone through this practice. Like there's more spaciousness, there's less of like a gotta I have to, it's just like right? When we all do it together, there's in the same way that earlier I was describing, right? The subtle looks on our faces, like the way that the energy organizes in our body, subtle cues that we pick up from one another. When we're all a little more relaxed, right? It informs the field that's created between us. What's possible to have happen here? How do we organize ourselves? Yeah, Jen.
The noticing the continuously changing sensation is really helpful. The changing piece somehow loosens because it becomes like of like what aligns.
Something is not working with your microphone. I have a hard time. Like
Oh, you.
Yeah.
I was hearing something. I'm still hearing feedback. Can you hear me at all, or is it just me with feedback?
It's just hard to make out what you're saying.
How about now?
I think so. Should I give it a shot?
Okay. So yeah, the part of with the noticing the continuously changing sensations, that pointer was really helpful, because then it just doesn't align with what I think of my sense of self as, like this continuously changing thing.
Yep.
And so that shifted things kind of out, and kind of merged it. But then the more the sticking points were things that my mind makes predictions about. So almost like my mind knows there's a cause and effect, and it thinks if I do this or I do this, then I get this later, and I still am invested in what sensations or experiences happen later. So then it's like, I don't want to do that. So I'm curious. Yeah, I guess I'm wondering, is the direction to not care about it? It seems like the direction would be to care about that in everything equally. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
I will say, just because we're starting to run low on time, this is why we have the emptiness of thought, emptiness of time, and we start loosening the grab of all of those. Oh, but the future. Oh, but yeah, and there comes to be an evenness, simplicity. Things are stop grabbing as hard. Jonathan, yeah.
For me, my experience with this is kind of, as I've noticed before, it's like when I'm looking for, okay, where is my sense of self? Is it, in my head, behind my eyes, and or trying to turn the lens back on itself? It's like one of those 360-degree cameras where the point of view is constantly kind of like shifting around, never able to actually land on that spot. But there's always a sensation of like, well, there's a camera at the middle. And then with this today, as I was looking at, well, am I directing my attention to different spots in my field of awareness as though it's like that camera shifting around? And I noticed, like, well, maybe I'm just, the metaphor of the camera is kind of reifying that that positioning. and what would happen if I stop thinking about that or looking at it through that metaphorical lens, and it kind of seemed to settle down or soften, or almost like that center in the field of view maybe shrunk a little bit. So almost like asking the question is reifying it, and just like letting it be a little bit more, and felt sort of interesting softening and relaxing to my experience.
Yeah, there's an art, not just in the practice, but also in how we look. And this is an essence of why we do the collectedness practice before, because it makes for a more gentle looker, something that's a little less stressed. Otherwise, we can, by the act of searching for a self, we can make a self. We can make a more drenched self. So yeah, so good job noticing that. Oz.
So I was trying to understand what I'm feeling or why I'm not feeling it, and I'll maybe with your example with the milk, then to me it was more than opening the fridge. Okay, there's no milk here, but maybe it's in a cabinet, or maybe it's in a drawer. But shit, I should I have milk or I shouldn't have milk? Should I feel something or shouldn't feel something? Should I feel it in my fingers or in my head or in my stomach? Because you were saying, try to where you feel it in your fingers, maybe in your head. And I was like, why am I not? What am I supposed to be feeling? So the example with the milk is great, as long as, and to the extent I could say, okay, I don't feel anything. Let's go ahead. But to me, it's more of searching for that milk everywhere, and saying, I think I should have milk somewhere. I don't know how it looks like, and I'll continue trying to find it. And this is kind of distract me and takes me kind of off the.
Yeah. So again, more collecting the mind. The more you relax the mind before, the more you collect it into one sharp tool, the easier this becomes. You stop having like, but should I have milk? But and this and that, and am I doing it right? So it becomes this very simple practice. Just like, oh, the instructions. Oh, no milk here. Oh, no milk here. Otherwise, the mind will try, any part of the mind that's not collected, that's not in consensus, is going to use the opportunity to be like, but I need to have milk for later, and then this and that.
Exactly.
Yeah. This is an advanced practice. It's not trivial that we can do it here on the call without preparation. So it's just building the foundation for going into this somewhat more advanced practice. Don't get too discouraged. It's easy. You just have to do the work. It's really very easy. Yes.
Actually, the example of
Boris, you're muted.
excuse me. I like the example of the milk, and actually I felt it was quite easy for me to abandon the search for the where the self hides. And sometimes at the beginning I was starting to get worried, what should it be so easy? But then I left this idea also, and now I think maybe it was so easy, but because of the field, the mutual field that you talked about. But actually, it was exactly like, is the self here? No. Is it anyway? Should I just stopped trying to find it, and it was as easy as you said.
Perfect. Yeah. Sometimes this is all very easy. Just need one time for someone to show us it's possible, and it's easy. And it is definitely easier when we do it together. There's a whole field of the same thing happening. But it's easiest if you meditate for 20, 30, 40 minutes before and collect the mind. That's the absolute easiest.
I will sure to try it.
So indeed, try this at the end of your normal meditation. I have not written those parts out yet in the practice book, but when you get to the end of your practice, even if you're just in stage 3, you can try that. It will be easier from 4, but you can also do it if you have a solid stage 3 practice. Okay, so something that I want to emphasize is that, and this is really important, I want you all to listen very carefully. By going beyond the idea of a self or any of the other entrenched filters that I mentioned, we are not destroying them, we're not removing them, we're not making them go away, we're not making anything go away. This is seeing better. It's like wearing glasses, and now we see what our experience is in a way that we just could not before. And it's through the seeing, it's through this higher acuity of perception that we have more choice. Sometimes through the choice, through the higher acuity, things will rearrange in the mind. But we do not rearrange them. We do not go like, oh, this is too grabby. Yeah. Lack of inherent meaning. Don't do that. That is the highest risk of this path. This is where all spiritual bypassing begins. I have no self. You're triggered. I'm all right. You're not spiritually advanced like me. Don't do that. Don't be that guy. Let's see if there's more that I wanted to say about this. Yeah, okay. And just then to finish with this notion again, seeing the filters that come up, and because we see them, also the freedom from them coming up compulsively then also opens the way for intention, for conscious intention. The more freedom that we have, the more we are able not just to apply conscious intention, but to collect all of ourselves into a conscious intention more frequently, more robustly, more continuously, right? Until the point where it's almost, not almost, it's the most natural thing to continuously be in an attitude of love and compassion. And it's not that it's more moral to be loving. It's not that it's some highest ethical choice and you do it because you're supposed to. It's just like you see with the same acuity of perception that it's nicer to love everyone. It feels good. So you train yourself, or the system trains itself to see that it feels good. It's really nice to live a life where you love everyone. And that's how this path of emptiness leads necessarily and directly to you loving everyone. I'm saying this just to make sure you don't force yourself to love everyone, right? It's the same thing. You can also spiritual bypass the other way and be like, oh, I have to be of service and I have to love everyone. It's like, wait, first of all, see your experience. If you're tightening to love someone, if you're contorting yourself to be some bodhisattvic ideal, you're like, oh, that's funny. I don't want to do this. If an intention arises and it feels more accommodating of you, it feels more like you, the essential you, it feels good to communicate this way with your partner, with your work colleagues, with anyone, then do it. The essence of this all is learning to be yourself, learning how to not contort yourself into some structure because you think you're supposed to be this way, because it's the highest, because that's what's moral or spiritual. So first and foremost, return to clear seeing. Let go of anything that's not necessary. Just do this practice of emptiness, letting go, to feeling the coherence that exists in your body, in your mind, before any idea, before any agenda, before any notion of, oh, I have to be this way so that person is satisfied. I have to be this way because the teacher said, blah, blah, blah. Then exercise in mind, but more important, if there are any other questions or comments before we end. How are we feeling today after all of this? Well, maybe we do have a time for a short exercise. All right, so we want to do breakout rooms. I want you to take 1 minute, very quickly dissolve into emptiness to whatever degree is possible for you. See if you can unfind the self and again connect with the entire space of awareness as your basis of operation. Awareness unmediated by an idea of a self. And I want you to conceive of a challenging situation in your life, not necessarily the most challenging one. And consider that if you had absolute freedom, freedom from any idea of a self, from any agenda, from any past, from any authority telling you how things should be, any worry about your reputation, how would you show up? What filter would you place? What intention would you bring into the situation? And as it comes up, it can be as simple as, oh, I want to be loving. And you can feel the love in your body, conceiving yourself in that situation. Or it can be very specific. Oh, I want to tell that person that I apologize, or I want to tell that person that this is my boundary. And I want to tell them in a friendly way. Whatever it is, just from most expanded, spacious state that's available to you. From this thought experiment of I have infinite freedom. I can show up in any way that I want. Do you want to show up? Before we end this experiment, I want you to take the signature of what you found with you, how it feels in the body, what the essence of the intention is. I know some of you have to go at 11:30, but if someone wants to stay, I'd love to hear from one or two of you what you came up with and how it felt before we end. And if you need to leave, then of course.
Thank you, Dor. Have to leave.
Yeah, like for me, this uh, I still kind of I'm still reflecting a little bit on the previous exercise that we did about finding the self. And when you gave again like the analogy of like looking for the milk in the fridge, it just kind of helped me realize that like, oh, I was just like, while I was doing that exercise, there was this sort of like, well, I gotta find the self. I must be feeling the sense of self right now, but like, where is? And I just like realized, well, oh, that's just what is it? Can I describe it? It's like maybe that thought was the self in the moment, or like that was definitely the grasping in the moment, or like look the conviction that there is it is somewhere, but it wasn't. Like that's kind of what yeah came up for me. So thanks for that. That was really great.
Yeah, that's really good. The conviction that there is a self is the tool that the coordinator uses to be the king.
Yeah.
I am the self.
Yeah.
I am the God Emperor. I am the country. I am the human. Do what I say.
Yeah. This is awesome.
Anyone else? How is this experiment? It's an important experience to cultivate because right now it's more something that you take the time and dissolve and think about what to bring to some future moment. But as you progress on this path and as you strengthen this muscle, it's a sort of question that continuously gets asked in the background. How do I want to be right now? From the space of all possibilities and being unbound by all of those mediators, and with less and less karma that's compulsively directing me a certain way. From this space of possibilities, how do I want to be? In some sense, that's the most important question on this path. How do I want to be right now?
I'm curious, and where does that choice like come from? Is it coming from the?
Yeah, where does it come from?
I don't know. Where are we looking? Yeah, is it?
What's your best thesis? Where does it come from?
My thesis. Well, I guess I'm more interested in within me. How do I find it? But I've heard the thesis kind of in your presentations. I think there's a signal, right? There's a compassion signal or something.
Mm-hmm. The reason why I'm challenging you is that in some sense there is no answer, or every answer is legitimate. Because just like in the question of where is the self, you can be like, oh, it's inside my head, it's my brain. And it's like, wait, is it in one particular subnetwork? Is it in the pattern of electrical activation? Is it in the molecules? But wait, it can't just be my brain, because information coming to my brain is coming through the senses, and it's coming from, well, it's coming from your brain because you speak words to me and I hear them. But then where do the words come into your brain? Well, you read them in a book. But who wrote the book? And so on and so forth. And then you end up with the entire universe in every moment. So who decides? Who perceives? And it's beautiful. And feel this as you ask yourself the question and you stay in a space of no answer. That is expanded awareness. That spaciousness between the question and the answer, where you don't yet have an answer, where you don't, I really need to have an answer. And there's,
Well, what you said felt like an answer in that it was like, that's crazy. Like this world is crazy, but like that it functions that way. But then my mind's also like, there's no way I can function as a human in the way I'm supposed to with that perspective. Sorry.
yeah. So function and human and supposed to. And you'll notice, and this is the magic of it that comes from a deep trust, that even as you let go of ideas of what the self is and what you're supposed to do and what's right and what it is to be a human, you still continue moving and behaving and everything's all right. Somehow it's all just fine.
Okay, yeah, I think I need to learn to trust that and not be like, okay, then I'll just like be homeless on the streets without any financial backing.
All right, I think we can end here. Remember that you don't begin and end anywhere. None of it is you and all of it is you. Hope to see you all next week.